First up, first red flag is if your agent does not anticipate problems. So there's a whole list of problems that you should be anticipating before you bring your home to market. Sometimes agents won't even talk about these things until you're looking at offers. So first thing up that is an issue that you want to anticipate are issues with condo docs. We always recommend ordering a full package of condo docs prior to bringing your home to market. This is really important because of lending requirements, and it's crucial to have a lender review the full package of condo docs prior to coming to market, because that will determine what sort of financing your property even qualifies for. So, for example, recently the conventional financing requirements around condo docs shifted. Fewer condos qualify for conventional financing, and if you don't order your condo docs in advance, you could be costing yourself weeks on market and wasted time in terms of entertaining a buyer who doesn't even qualify to purchase the property. So
or your property doesn't qualify for that buyer. The buyer may qualify, right?
True.
But
Yeah,
but your
distinction.
condo may not qualify for conventional financing or 5% down or 3% down conventional financing. We had one last week.
Right.
Offer came in, FHA, and I hadn't considered it for that building, and we looked at it and they said, we better double check that this building qualifies for FHA. And that's a whole nother can of worms. Part of that is condo docs. Part of that is FHA a number of years ago disqualified all the buildings that used to qualify for FHA. And now they have to get requalified. And so before we even took the seller's time to respond to the offer, go into escrow, and find out 3 weeks later that we don't qualify for FHA, we said we better dot the I on that and make sure that we qualify for FHA, and at the end of the day, we didn't.
Yeah, prior to coming to market, because you don't want to waste that time.
Yep. Anything else on condo docs?
Nope, that's pretty much it.
So let me jump into another area you need to anticipate problems, and that's land surveys.
Right.
Okay, couple different areas. So when you're selling a house in Hawaii, I know that when I sold real estate in California, they don't get land surveys. But in Hawaii, generally speaking, the seller provides the buyer a land survey. And that shows where the corners of the property are. And it also gives them a map of the perimeter of the property that shows what's near or on the perimeter of the property. Walls, improvements, right? I've seen where parts of houses are actually crossing
into the
property line, or they're within the setback on the property lines. So what happens is many agents won't get that land survey until you're in escrow, right? Which means that the transaction is negotiated, the buyer's in love with the property, and now we don't get that land survey, or they don't get the land survey until 2 or 3 weeks before closing. And if there's an encroachment, and so we're going to teach you a legal word here, the word de minimis, okay? De minimis means that anything less than 6 inches is considered de minimis and doesn't necessarily require an encroachment agreement or a wall agreement. Now, what happens is if it comes in and we have that agent, the agent you choose hasn't gotten that in advance, what happens is that agent needs to go to the neighbor. Let's say it was a 1 foot encroachment, the neighbor coming on to you or vice versa. They're going to have to go to that neighbor, talk to them about the idea of a wall agreement or an encroachment agreement, all right? And then what happens is you need to have a wall agreement or an encroachment agreement drafted
by an attorney.
At a cost of somewhere in the $400 to $500 range, could cost more. Then you have to go to that neighbor and ask them to sign it. Many times they want their attorney to review it before they sign it. You'd probably want them to do that, right? Just smart to do. And they say, we don't want to pay for our attorney to sign it. If I'm going to sign this, you're going to pay for it. So at the end of the day, that encroachment agreement could cost 2 things. One, a lot of money. One encroachment agreement where an attorney has to review it could cost you $1,000 to $1,500, right? If you're paying for their attorney's fees. Or it could cost you the transaction, because the way the contract is written is that if you can't resolve that encroachment agreement, then the buyer earns the right to terminate.
Right, because the buyer's on usually a short timeline to get that resolved, and if they aren't confident that it will be resolved, they'll just cancel, right, to protect themselves. So you want to get that figured out before coming to market.
So why is anticipation important? 2 reasons. First, cost, right? Cost of the survey. We get bids in advance. We know the low-cost providers, but we should be able to get bids in advance and go with the low-cost provider. Second cost is if there's a problem with it, you avoid having to spend the $400 to $500 per encroachment to get the encroachment agreement drafted, and then the legal fees, and then the potential loss of the transaction. So by anticipating and getting the survey in advance, when an offer comes in, we can say, oh, by the way, here's a survey, and there's a problem with it, but we want you to take it as is. We're not going to remedy it. My experience has been when we give it to them, when they're making the offer, they're in love with the property, and I'm not aware of a situation where we've done that, where they didn't accept it as is. So by anticipating that, we avoid all of that drama at the back end of the transaction.
Totally.
Make sense?
Absolutely.
Anything you want to add to that, Lehua?
No, I think just a slightly separate topic, another area to anticipate problems in is regarding the seller's disclosure statement. You want to make sure you fill that out before coming to market, because it is an important conversation to have with your broker. It lays everything out. There are 155 questions or something.
105.
105.
It's over. It's 100. It's a lot.
It's a lot of questions.
It's a lot.
It's a detailed document. It's important to really go over that with your broker prior to coming to market, because sometimes there are issues that it's important for buyers to be aware of that may be deal breakers. For example, if somebody has passed away in the property, sometimes that, you want to put everything on the table as much as possible, so everyone, meaning everyone on your team, you and your broker are on the same page. So, sometimes there are repairs that are needed that maybe aren't talked about until you go through the seller's disclosure statement. And it's just important to have that transparency with your broker in case there are problems that are sort of revealed in that detailed
disclosure,
document.
Right?
Yes.
Well, and if there is a problem, as your agent and broker, the person selling it, we can then, how should I put it, pre-sell it, in the sense that we say, by the way, in the seller's disclosure statement, there was somebody that passed away in the second bedroom, right?
Yeah.
And I know there's debate whether that materially affects the value of the property under the current disclosures rules.
Right. Yeah.
But if you're disclosing something like that, you can tell them that so they're not surprised. Tell them circumstances of the passing, and maybe dampen down any concerns that would keep them from moving forward. Right? Just an example.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add on SOPDS?
No. So let me jump on the final area where you can anticipate problems. It's called the preliminary title report. The preliminary title report, or PTR, is the title to the property. It shows all of the legal documents that are recorded against the property. It shows the deed. It shows how the title is held. It shows any condominium documents, any fines or liens, or anything that affects the title is going to be there. It shows the ownership of the property.
Right.
And I'm going to give you an example. I know someone that had to file bankruptcy because there was a 1/512th interest on the property. And they were in the process of doing something with the property, and they couldn't get that 1/512th interest signed off because they didn't want to sell their 1/512th interest.
Right.
And they had to file bankruptcy. And that's something that could have been known on the front end by merely investigating the preliminary title report. If you have concerns with it, it's a legal issue. You can have your attorney look at it. But in most instances, for a normal residential property, there aren't issues. But sometimes, if you've been married before, has anybody been married before? Right? There could be a child support lien. There, if your name is a common name, there could be, John Smith. There could be tax liens that may or may not be yours that could hold up the closing. There are a myriad of things that you want to dot the I on and cross the T to make sure that they're not going to slow things down. And if they are yours, then we want to anticipate how do we remove them so we can meet the timeline of the closing.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You want to jump on anything else on that?
No, that was comprehensive.